to get down to business? Join seasoned entrepreneur, community leader, and Army veteran Scott Shalom Klein, who will take you behind the scenes with those who work in America's small business scene and speak with leaders making an impact, creating jobs, and telling their story in entrepreneurship. So let's get down to business. On AM 560, The Answer, here's your host, Shalom Klein.
And indeed, we're all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship and business. We talk all about small business here, and I'm thrilled to kick off the program today with a leader who has lived the full 360 degrees of the human experience, from homelessness and addiction to becoming a board-appointed CEO. Jonathan Crawford is a recovering addict, a survivor, and the president of broadcast and media in the telecommunications industry. Over a career that began in a temporary role and accelerated through 7 promotions in 14 years, he has built a legacy of driving transformation and developing people at every level. He's a certified coach in disruption and resilience and the author of the new book, Surviving Jonathan, 360 Degrees of Resilience. He's here to show us how to survive survival and make peace with our past while building a fearless future. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh my gosh, such an honor. Jonathan, your book is titled Surviving Jonathan. So in the high pressure world of executive leadership, who is the Jonathan that most leaders are trying to survive without even realizing it?
That's a great question. Let me just start first by saying, for myself, in leadership and surviving that. First of all, I really feel that people are surviving everything, whether it's leadership, careers, relationships. But for me, the survival part of leadership was getting in my own way. What type of culture am I bringing to the table within the organization? And in terms of, for myself, and I'm kind of, for myself, one of the issues that I had throughout my leadership was really imposter syndrome. And that really played a significant role throughout my career, early on, starting out, especially coming from a place where I was with addiction and homelessness. And am I fitting in the right rooms? Do I belong in the right rooms? So that was one of the things that I struggled with. And as I coach leaders, I find that to be something regardless of where their walks of life they've come from, imposter syndrome. And that is significant in terms of people surviving, their leadership role.
Yeah, and you went from a temporary role to a board-appointed CEO through 7 promotions in 14 years. What was the specific turning point where you stopped seeing yourself as a survivor and started seeing yourself as a strategist?
Yeah, so I would say in those 7 promotions, early on, those were supervisor, early managerial roles. But I think once I began holding the responsibility of the organization on my shoulders, that's where the significant change came. It's like I can no longer be an imposter. Like, you are here. You are actually in the role with all the responsibilities, people's lives on your shoulder. And so I didn't have any time or any space to remain in any type of imposter syndrome, survival mode. And that's where strategy kicked in for me. Strategy was the shift once I hit that kind of C-level role.
Yeah, and you argue that we don't build resilience by pretending it doesn't hurt. How does a leader maintain their leadership while also doing the deep inner work of healing from things like addiction or loss?
Yeah, so I honestly believe that, and for me, leadership starts within. You have to be able to lead yourself before you can lead others. And resilience is something that really played a significant role in that for me, in that, it took me to really dig deep and go back and really take that 360 and take it to a transformational level, the resilience to a transformational level, where it just wasn't about bouncing back. It's about making a full spiral, going further than where you were before. So not returning to the same place.
And we talk about stewardship of values on this show. How did your experience with homelessness change the way you define fulfillment as CEO in the telecommunications industry?
Well, I would say this. As I was achieving success, I thought it was purposeful. And especially from where I had come from, it actually gave me something to believe in. But as I reached my C-level, CEO level, I had to take a step back because I wasn't really feeling fulfilled. I felt like there was a greater purpose for me in that, coming from homelessness and addiction. It's like, Jonathan, there has to be a way for you to give back. And I feel like that's where purpose and really came for me. Was where I started to look for more purpose. And that's when I shifted and wrote my book, Surviving Jonathan. That's where I started coaching and mentoring more people who I saw that were struggling like me, and wanted to give people a safe space where they could land, to be able to express themselves, achieve their growth, get out of survival mode, and really just move beyond being stuck in the routines and the day-to-day that they were.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the burden of command. How does a leader handle the weight of developing others while they're still trying to navigate in 360 degrees of their own personal transformation?
Yeah. So the burden of command for me, as I state in my book, it carried a lot of weight, as I stated earlier, and being responsible for people's livelihoods and keeping the company afloat to make sure that it's sustaining and maintaining. So I carried that weight. And in leadership, you kind of experience the professional loneliness, I call it, where, your circle gets smaller. Who whom you can go out and kind of talk to that shrinks. But what I found was that through all of that, and resilience, and that's where the 360 degrees of resilience comes in that it covers your mental and emotional resilience. It's your cultural and relational resilience and how you're relating with others. It's your identity-based resilience and knowing who you are. That is what really helped sustain me throughout my leadership and carrying that burden of command.
And you believe that choosing your identity over other people's assumptions is the key to resilience. So how can an entrepreneur that's tuning in protect their authentic brand from the presuppositions and projections of a skeptical market?
So first of all, there's a lot of skepticism right now in the market, in the business world. So we are contending with AI. So what we're finding, in our business in some areas. So for a new entrepreneur, I would say, first and foremost is knowing who you are, how you sustained. I would also look at deeply into their passions and what is this what brings me passion? Is it about my financials? Like you have to answer all those questions, and I guess that goes back into the identity. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question there, Shalom?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, how can we especially protect that brand?
Yeah, so protecting your brand, and I'll just speak for me and the companies that I've ran here. One of the things has always been service. I work in a service-oriented business, and our reputation is built on service. It's built on how we manage and treat our customers and our relationships. And relationships have a lot to do with how you and your brand, for me, because it's what has provided us growth. And so I feel like protecting your brand is several sides to it. One, how are you marketing yourself? How are you protecting your reputation? How are you treating your clients? And today in social media, I mean, that's huge because one bad review can tarnish your entire organization.
Indeed, indeed. I want to give the final word over to you, Jonathan, because you talked about, again, turning some of that adversity into authority, and I know our listeners can appreciate that. The book is Surviving Jonathan, 360 Degrees of Resilience. And I want to make sure our listeners can get in touch with you if they'd like to do so. And of course, find the book. How can they do that?
Oh, they can find me on LinkedIn at Mr. Jonathan Crawford. My website is mrjonathancrawford.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Mr. Jonathan Crawford as well. So Mr. Jonathan Crawford, you can Google it. You'll find me pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jonathan. Thanks for being so vulnerable and sharing your advice, your stories, and expertise with us. I look forward to bringing you back on the show real soon. We've got to squeeze in a quick break, but we've got a jam-packed show, jam-packed lineup, all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. We'll be right back.